I want them to get a feel for the power of art, for the power of music to communicate and to move you and to reach your soul. So that was really my purpose, and to bring joy, because we're in such difficult times now. Everything is so challenging.
A broadcast service of City College and the San Diego Community College District. This is Jazz FM 88.3 KSDS San Diego. I'm Dave Drexler with Inside Art. Support for Inside Art comes from the members of San Diego's Jazz 88.3. This week on Inside Art, we explore the diverse expression of contemporary Latino cinema at the 33rd Annual San Diego Latino Film Festival, March 18th through 22nd. We'll have an in-depth preview of this year's festival lineup. But first, the story of legendary 17-time Grammy and Latin Grammy winning saxophonist, clarinetist, and composer Paquito D'Rivera hits the screen Friday, March 20th at 4:30 p.m. in the Digital Gym Cinema. Paquito D'Rivera, From Carne y Frijol to Carnegie Hall, is a lively and heartfelt documentary tracing the life and career of this virtuoso instrumentalist who left Cuba in 1980 at great personal risk and whose immigrant success story is defined by brilliance, humor, and reinvention. Director Juan Mandelbaum has more than 30 documentaries to his credit covering a wide variety of subjects, and he's won multiple awards, including 3 Emmys for his work. Juan, it's great to have you with us on Inside Art.
Hello, Dave. Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to our conversation.
Well, what interested you in the story of Paquito D'Rivera? I mean, there's a lot to it, and it hadn't been told, but what was your take on wanting to do a project about this?
It was a variety of things. I've always loved his music, and I recognize his sound. Anytime I hear him playing, I know that's Paquito. He has a very, very unique sound. And I saw him perform a few times, and I saw how much joy he spread and how much people enjoyed not just his incredible performance, but also he's a great entertainer. So then I was thinking about doing a film about arts, Latino arts, because a lot of the documentaries being made were about really heavy and important subjects like immigration, incarceration. But I thought something lighter was also necessary in the menu. So through a friend, I met him actually in Uruguay for the first time in January 2020, and he liked the idea, and that's how we started. The first interview was there at the Punta del Este International Jazz Festival, and then came the pandemic, and we had to stop for a while, and then we picked it up again, and it took 5 years to finish, which was actually a good thing, because in the middle of that, he also had a reunion with his, longtime friend Chucho Valdez, but they had been sort of estranged in a way because Chucho stayed in Cuba, but then he eventually left. And after 40 years, they started touring together again. And we were able to capture that, an amazing concert in Miami where they launched that tour. And also, Paquito composed a concert for Yo-Yo Ma, the, world-renowned cellist. And so we were able to capture that. And I was also able to interview Yo-Yo, who was a fantastic interview. So it took a long time. I had a lot of support from Latino Public Broadcasting, which is one of the organizations that used to give funding for Latino programs for PBS. And of course, they've lost all their funding with the cuts that happened last year. But they were able to get me sort of right under the line, and I was able to finish it. And so I'm so happy that San Diego audiences were able to see my film.
You talked about the estrangement a little bit from Chucho Valdez, but the estrangement from Cuba is really a bigger story, isn't it? That was a result of Paquito coming to this country.
Yes, well, he defected and in Spain, and then 6 months later came to New York, which was always his dream to, because he knew that was sort of the capital of jazz, and he had had a connection with Dizzy Gillespie during one of Dizzy's visits to Cuba, and they hit it off. And he had a wife and a son, and he thought he was able to, bring them over soon after, but that didn't happen. The Cuban regime sort of retained his wife and son for many years until he finally was able to get them. Like, many years later, they joined him in the United States. So he's always been bitter about that, and also he was kind of a free spirit, so he didn't really fit well with the Cuban regime. No, they weren't really open for free spirits.
Well, you mentioned free spirit, and his humor is so evident here. You've really captured that in a nice way.
Yeah, thank you. And that's also one of the things that I liked when I saw him perform, um, is that, he really has a way of reading an audience and connecting with them. And he just enjoys performing so much. I mean, he has no problem going to a high school and playing with a high school band and then playing Carnegie Hall the next night. He just enjoys performing with young people a lot also. He's given breaks to a lot of young people. He gives them space when they're performing with him. So he's very generous in that sense.
What does your film cover then in terms of its story arc throughout his life? Is it like a broad overview? How do you approach that story?
Yes, I mean, he was a child prodigy, and his father, taught him solfege when he was like 4 or 5 years old. He literally almost knew how to read music before he knew how to read, with letters. And then they actually started touring in Dominican Republic when he was just a child. Uh, and so I tell the biography about how his father supported him, his mother would sew his costumes, uh, and then how as an adolescent, he met Chucho Valdez, and he was part of this famous group Iraquere, and they started touring, especially in the countries of the former Soviet Union. And there's some funny anecdotes about that in the film. And So the film has like two halves. The first half is more biographical, and the second is more about performances and his range, which is so amazing. And so I just wanted to explore that, and also I wanted to give the music room to breathe. I don't like it when you have a film about a musician and you hear 20 seconds and it cuts to something else. I really wanted people to get a sense of his music. So that was very important to me. And then, of course, the things that happened, like concert with Chucho and the concert with Yo-Yo. And again, I give those space, and those are also places where he introduces them and expresses them with, wonderful humor and wonderful connection with the audience.
I think those that concert footage that you've included will really be really popular with our audience in particular, our jazz audience, because like you said, it breathes, and it's the filmmaking quality that you've shot is so beautiful.
Well, thank you. And it was a challenge because I was working with, usually I'm used to working like with one camera person. And here I had like nine, because I had to
Really?
pick up people in Uruguay and then, people in Miami and then people
Oh, not
in,
not nine at one time, nine
no, no, not at
nine
one
different
time.
ones.
Yeah, I had up to four at one time, including myself. I also shot during the concerts.
Yeah.
Uh, but so that was very challenging. But I had great people. I had also a number of editors involved, a fabulous sound mixer. This is something that people don't realize many times, but I always pay a lot of attention to sound in my films. And obviously, in this film, it was very important. So there was a local guy, a friend of mine, Greg McCleary, who did a fantastic mix. And so I like my films to be very well made, even if sometimes I have to improvise to get, a crew or they don't have the latest camera or whatever. But then I work very hard to pull it all together. And so this is the result.
Well, you had quite a bit of assistance at that festival in Uruguay, which is a very famous festival. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's a very peculiar festival because it's this guy, Francisco Jovino, who started it as his pet project. And then it grew, and he would bring, really top musicians from the US. And Paquito was the musical director for all these years. And so I'm from Argentina originally, and I during the winter here in the US, I go to Uruguay. I have a little house in the countryside there, not too far from where the jazz festival is. So it was a very convenient location for me. And then over the years, we would get together with Paquito and his wife Brenda, and we'd hang out and go to see art exhibits. There's a fabulous, museum and sculpture park there, and so we always have a good time when we're together. And I really appreciate the trust that they had in me because when somebody makes a film about you, you don't know what the final result is going to be, right? And so last year, I actually had a screening for them in my house. The Paquito came for a fundraiser in Boston, and because I wanted to make sure that they were okay with everything, and they were. And then there's a funny story because in January they were on a jazz cruise out of Fort Lauderdale, and Paquito suggested to them that they show the film, and they did during the cruise. And Paquito and Brenda were there with the audience. And he saw how audiences reacted to the film. They were applauding during the film. When he was performing. Of course, they knew he was there, so that was very nice. I was looking forward to him having that experience because people really react during the film to his personality, to his music. Yeah.
That festival in particular in Uruguay is held in the fields.
Yeah, yeah. There's like cows next to it. There's these donkeys that Paquito adores. I filmed him with the donkeys too.
Oh, he's a regular visitor there. He has his favorites, right?
Yeah, Doroteo is the name of the donkey, and Doroteo literally recognizes Paquito when he comes, uh, and so yeah, it's a lot of fun. And you hear the cows in the background while people are performing. It's a wonderful venue. Yeah.
All right. Well, the film is Paquito D'Rivera, From Carne y Frijol to Carnegie Hall. How did you get that title?
Well, he tells a story in the film. I'm not going to spoil it, but it has to do with the first time that he heard the words Carnegie Hall spoken by his father, and he misunderstood it. So that's where the film title came from.
Well, speaking of his past, you were able to get some really great footage, archival footage, and that's not easy to get the rights, and especially when music is involved and all that stuff.
Yeah, that was a lot of work and research and negotiations. So we were able to get some footage when he was a teenager. This beautiful black and white footage of him playing with Chucho in Cuba. Then some very rough footage of Irakere, but it gives you a sense of how powerful they were. And then there was a friend of Paquito's, Jacques Moyal, who passed away recently, who had produced a concert with Dizzy and also filmed it. And he was very generous and gave me that footage. And so, yeah, for me, it was important to be able to complete the stories with appropriate footage from the different performances, also Newport Jazz Festival. And so yeah, I think that adds a lot to his range because you hear him play the clarinet, you see him play the saxophone, you see Dizzy Gillespie introducing him. There's really beautiful footage that I was able to find.
You say he had some bitterness about, having to leave his native country and the things that happened as a result of that. What are some of the other, main points that you'd like people to come away with from watching this movie?
Um, I think jazz lovers, of course, will probably know Paquito's music, and if they don't, they will be, pleasantly surprised to be introduced to such a master. And for audiences that are, once it plays on PBS, it's going to be very wide audiences. Um, I want them to get a feel for the power of art, for the power of music to communicate and to move you and to reach your soul. So that was really my purpose, and to bring joy because we're in such difficult times now. Everything is so challenging on so many levels, and to connect with something that really lifts your spirit, I think is very important right now. And the more we have of that, the better.
And I think you've succeeded on all counts of that. Juan Mandelbaum, the director of Paquito D'Rivera from Carne y Frijol to Carnegie Hall. And that is screening at the San Diego Latino Film Festival on Friday, March 20th at 4:30 p.m. at the Digital Gym Cinema. Thank you very much, Juan, for joining us for a few moments, and congratulations again on the making of this film.
Thank you so much, Dave, and thank you to your audience, and I hope they'll be able to come and see the film.
The San Diego Latino Film Festival screens Paquito D'Rivera from Carne y Frijol to Carnegie Hall, Friday, March 20th at 4:30 p.m. at the Digital Gym Cinema in downtown San Diego's East Village. You can purchase tickets and learn more at sdlatinofilm.com. Stay with us as we preview the entire 33rd edition of the San Diego Latino Film Festival as Inside Art continues here on San Diego's Jazz 88.3. Funding for Inside Art comes from the members of Jazz 88.3, where your support brings the joy and history of jazz and all of the arts to San Diego. To become a member, visit jazz88.org/donate.